Okay, so thank you for meeting with me today. I'm going to ask you about the stressful experiences questionnaire that you filled out. First, I'll ask you to tell me a little bit about the event that you said was worse for you. Then I'll ask how this event has affected you over the past month. In general, I don't need a lot of information. It's just so that I can get enough information to understand any problems that you may have had. Please let me know if you find yourself becoming upset and we can slow down and talk about it. Also, let me know if you have any questions or you don't understand anything. Do you have any questions at all before we start?
No, I don't think so.
No, okay. So you completed the stressful experiences questionnaire and you indicated that one of those events was the worst for you. Can you tell me a little bit about that event? What happened?
Yeah. So I mean, it's a long time ago now, but I was a medic in the Falklands War, and so yeah, I mean, we went down on these ships with everyone, and yeah, then we had to sort of get off the ships, and then we had to sort of go right across the islands, but there was quite a bit of, well, fighting and yeah, bombs and things like that, and yeah, a lot of my friends died actually. So yeah, that's it really. The whole thing, you know.
So it sounds as though you witnessed some horrible scenes. Did you feel that your own life was in danger at that time?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we were being, bombed, so we we were on these boats in a bay, and the Argentinian planes were trying to hit us, and then when we got onto onto the islands themselves, then yeah, obviously trying people were trying to get us then, and there were positions and fighting and things like that. So yeah, definitely thought, well, to be honest, I was convinced I was going to die. Yeah.
Okay. And during that event, were you injured at all?
No, not well, not physically. I mean, I think mentally I was, but not physically. Yeah, not physically.
Thank you very much. So for the rest of the interview, I want you to keep that event that you've just described in mind. And I'm going to ask about different problems that it may have caused for you. So you may have had some of these problems in the past, but for this interview, we're focusing specifically on the last month. So only things that have troubled you in the last month. And for each problem, I'll ask you if you've had it in the last month, and if so, how often and how much it's bothered you. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So first of all, in the past month, have you had any unwanted memories while you were awake? So not counting dreams.
Yes, yeah. No, I've had some when mainly when something's triggered it. I try not to get reminded about it, but if something triggers it, then that can bring back a memory. Yeah.
And what sort of things trigger it?
Well, things like news stories, really. If there's anything on about the Falklands, especially, although you don't get much of that on now. But the military, I guess, does to a degree. I mean, I tend to avoid anything like that. So, to be honest, over the years, I got quite good at that. So I don't, yeah, it doesn't happen very often now. Like, obviously anniversaries like in June, it's really bad in June, and then around Remembrance Day in November, it's particularly bad because it's more difficult to avoid, but generally I can avoid quite well.
And are these unwanted memories, or are you trying to think about it on purpose?
Oh God, no, I never try and think about it.
Mhm.
I just, yeah, no. The best way to deal with it is just not to think about it at all, yeah,
Okay.
and to avoid it. Yeah.
And when you have these memories, how much do they bother you?
It always upsets me. I mean, I'm always in tears when this happens. I mean, yeah, I need space, and my wife comforts me a bit, but it just makes me think of yeah, what happened, and yeah, just the horror of it at the time, really, and people getting killed and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And are you able to put these memories out of your mind and think about something else?
Yeah, no, that's what I do. I sort of push them away when they come in. So yeah, that's what I always do. I try and shove them away very quickly, or do something else. I found that's quite helpful. Sort of yeah, going for a walk or yeah, stuff like that. Yeah,
And how often have you had these memories, the unwanted memories, over the past month?
not very often. Maybe a couple of times, something like that. It literally is just when there's a trigger now. So yeah, you know, there's a program about 3 weeks ago I can remember, which was yeah, I mean I shouldn't have the television shouldn't have been on. I wouldn't have had it on, and it just sort of came on, and it showed some images of soldiers marching, and yeah, that made me upset. Just for a little while, but it made me upset. Um, yeah, so I think there's been a couple like that in the last month. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. In the past month, have you had any unpleasant dreams about that event?
Yeah, the dreams, they've never gone away. I mean, I've got this medication which I think has calmed them down a little bit, but they've never they've never gone away. And I've had therapy in that and they've just never gone away.
And can you describe one of these dreams, a typical dream?
Yeah, well, I get the dream I get most frequently is yeah, sort of marching across the island and yeah, and then yeah, just coming across yeah, like a dead body and yeah, and turning it over and it just looked, you know, it's got my face basically. It's,
And do these dreams wake you up?
yeah. As soon as I see my face, I wake up. I sometimes wake up even before that because I know it's going to be my face.
Mhm. And when you wake up, what do you experience?
I feel sort of really panicky, as if my heart's beating. I'm a bit shaky, sweaty. I'm just really wound up, if I'm honest. And yeah, yeah, yeah.
How long does it take you to go back to sleep?
Well, I've got a bit of a ritual because I almost expect these things to happen. So I get up and I go downstairs and I yeah have a drink of tea, decaffeinated tea, and then after about half an hour I go back to bed. So I reckon it's about an hour and a half before I get back to sleep. And yeah, and generally I'm okay then as long as I do that. But,
And how much do these dreams bother you?
oh, I wish they weren't there. I wish they
Mm.
weren't there. Yeah, so they're not helpful to me. They don't. If I have a dream, then I'm not rest. Even though I'm sleeping, I'm not rested. I don't feel rested the next day. So they bother me. I mean, they're not as bad as they were initially, or at their worst, but I suppose they're just a part of me now.
Okay. And how many times have you had these dreams in the past month?
I mean, it varies a bit month on month. In the last month, I reckon probably once, maybe twice a week, 1 to 2 times a week, something like that. I get them.
Okay, thank you. In the past month, have there been times where you suddenly acted or felt as though it was actually happening again? So the event you described earlier, have you felt as though it's happening to you again?
Only when I'm asleep. So if I'm asleep, then definitely it just feels so real that it's as if it's all going on again. Is that what you mean? Or
Yeah, are there times in the day where you sort of feel as though it's happening again? So I suppose a bit like a dream, but while you're awake.
oh, when you're awake?
Yeah.
No, I mean, like I said to you, I get because I try and push everything away and don't avoid any triggers, and so yeah, that's how I deal with it. So no, I mean, if anything comes into my head, it's like a really vivid picture in my head, but I push it away, and I can tend to, with practice, I can tend to do that quite well now.
Mm. And so they're often called flashbacks, so you don't have those.
Well, I mean, I get flashbacks if that's what you mean by having images in my head and just sort of seeing it. And yeah, it's really, it's as if it happened yesterday. It's like a film in my head that I see.
But are you aware that that's a memory, or do you feel as though you're actually back there?
Oh yeah, no, I'm not back there. I mean, yeah, it's in my head, but it's like the memory is very, it's just like it happened.
Yeah. And in the past month, have you gotten emotionally upset when something's reminded you of what happened?
I do. Like I said, yeah, like I told you about that, catching that bit of TV, that did upset me. So I was tearful after that, and yeah, So that's. I think there's been a couple of times like that. I mean, I can remember that one because that was the worst, and I think there was one other one which wasn't quite as bad, but that was the main thing in the last month. And as I say, it happens. It tends to happen once or twice a month, even though I think I've got quite good at avoiding things. Yeah.
Yeah. So apart from the television causing you these reminders which are upsetting, is there anything else that triggers upset about what happened?
But if anyone said anything about it would. But people know not to talk about that with me. And we've got like a rule in our house that any military talk is kind of banned because it tends to set me off. I mean, just the prospect of coming here and talking to you today, that I guess that's the other time when it made me think a little bit about it. But again, I shove it away. I mean, it's not comfortable talking about it now, but before we went on to recording, you said that I didn't need to go into great detail about anything.
Yeah. Okay. So apart from a couple of times where you've become upset because you've been reminded by something on the television, there haven't been any other occasions this month that you've become emotionally upset.
No, I mean, when I wake up from my dreams, I'm upset. But apart from that, that, and they're like dreams. So yeah, I can't think of anything else anyway.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Thank you. In the past month, have you had any physical reactions when something's reminded you of what happened? So this could be your heart racing, kind of a change to your breathing, sweating, or feeling very tense or shaky. Have you had any of those physical reactions?
Well, again, like I said to you, when though that television instance I told you, and I think there'd be another one perhaps, but definitely my heart beats quickly then when when it comes into mind and I get tearful. But I've got like breathing techniques and things just to try and calm me down a bit that I use. And yeah, they're helpful. They don't, it's still there, but they're helpful, and I feel much calmer more quickly than I used to by using those sorts of things. And I think the medication probably helps a bit as well.
So how long does it take you to recover then? So using those techniques you mentioned, how long does it take you to recover from those physical reactions? So they're sort of feeling tense and shaky and heart beating fast, those sorts of reactions.
Well, because as I say, I'm quite good now at sort of distracting myself. And so, well, that one I can remember it very distinctly and I was tearful, but after 15 minutes I was feeling much better. And I mean, you feel a little bit of something, don't you, when something like that happens? You know about it, but yeah, to be honest, I'm just a bit quieter for a few hours probably. But I felt really bad for probably 10 minutes, 15 minutes, but then I managed to calm myself down, and with my wife talking to me, I calmed down.
So thinking specifically about those physical reactions, how many times has that happened in the past month?
Well, I can only really remember that once, if I'm honest. But there might have been another one, but it wasn't like that one. Yeah, but whenever I think about it, I tend to get a bit of palpitation.
Yeah. Okay. And we've already touched on this, but in the past month, have you tried to avoid thoughts or feelings about what happened?
Oh yeah, I do that all the time. I've got, that's how I cope. That's how I manage.
And what sort of thoughts and feelings do you avoid?
Well, any thoughts about the Falklands, about what happened? So if it just avoid thinking about it. It's not even conscious now. I just avoid it. And if I, like I said to you, if I do get a trigger or something, then I just push it away. So it's like if it comes into my head, what I think straight away is get rid of it, and do something to get rid of it. And I mean, one person told me about an elastic band thing. So, I don't really need that now, but I sometimes pinch my skin a bit just to sort of get rid of it. And I find that just by, distracting myself, that gets rid of it. And so it's any thoughts or feelings or anything about it at all. But as I say, because I'm quite good at avoiding triggers now, it doesn't really come into my mind very often.
So, how often in the past month have you avoided thoughts and feelings?
Well, as I say, I'd avoid everything all the time, so
Mm.
it's always there. How often have I actively tried to avoid something because I'm thinking about it? Then, once or twice. I mean, I guess in fairness, when I wake up from my dreams, I mean, if I didn't have this ritual of going downstairs and having a cup of tea, I'd probably think about it then. But
Mm.
I get rid of it straight. Again, like I said to you, within like half an hour, I've sort of got on top of that dream, and I've got a little routine to get back into bed. I read something that's just fiction, and then I can gradually get back off to sleep again. So it's
Thank you. In the past month, have you tried to avoid things that remind you of what happened? So you mentioned television, but television or anything else like certain people, places, or situations.
yeah. I don't do, and I don't meet any of my army friends anymore. My old army friends, don't have anything to do with them at all. I don't do anything military wise at all. I'd never go near like you see these adverts for like military charities and stuff like that. I'd never do anything like that. Different times of year, like I said to you, remembrance, I'd avoid going out then totally, just because
Mm.
you're bound to come across it. I know where army recruitment is in Cardiff, and I don't even walk down that street. I avoid
Mm.
that street. Yeah, I just know how to avoid things if I'm honest. So it just doesn't. Yeah, you
Yeah.
don't have to think about it anymore.
And so, how much effort would you go to avoid something? So, if there was a situation that you'd have to put yourself in that would remind you, how much effort would you go to avoid that situation?
Well, I just wouldn't do it, to be honest.
Mm.
So you know, I wouldn't do it. I mean, so a good example would be like last year. Well, I'm sorry. Earlier this year there was quite a bit of stuff around the Falklands and that, with it being the 40th anniversary, and so yeah, I just didn't watch television for a month. Somebody did contact me, like an old friend, and I just ignored it. I didn't respond to it. I just deleted it straight away. So I just I wouldn't engage in it for one moment.
Mm. So, thinking back on the last month specifically, how often have you avoided situations or places that might remind you what happened?
Well, for example, where the recruitment centre is, you know, I would, if I took the quickest way to where I go and where I work now, I'd go past it every day. But I
Mm.
don't. I go the long way round, and you know, so it takes me about 15 minutes longer to walk around that way. But I just think, well, that's a bit of extra exercise, and that's not a bad thing to do. So yeah, so I'd avoid stuff like that, and then television programs and that. I mean, there's always something there that probably before I joined the army anyway, I'd have really loved that sort of thing.
Mm.
I wouldn't now, but it's just sort of like second nature now. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And in the past month, have you had any difficulty remembering important parts of the event that you described earlier?
There's bits that I'm not quite sure. I mean, yeah, I mean, certainly when going back years ago when we were trying to find out exactly what happened, there's definitely sort of bits that I just can't remember happening at all. Like when I was, I remember one bit. It was like sort of yeah, it's sort of like we came across you know a position where the Argentinians were, and there was like a like a firefight, and somebody told me that I'd done such and such in that, and I just cannot remember that at all. I've got no memory for that, but I really remember walking across the island. Well, I remember arriving and everything, and I think otherwise, it sort of feels as if I do remember stuff, but I can't remember that one firefight, at all.
And
At
why
all.
do you think you can't remember that? Do you sort of have any
I was
idea why you can't
petrified.
remember it?
I was absolutely petrified at the time. I just didn't know what to. I was absolutely convinced I was gonna die, and two of my friends did die in that firefight. So it was just awful. It was just awful. It was just like a dream. I was out of it. I was just so panicky.
And do you think this is normal forgetting, or do you think you may have blocked it because it's too painful?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't want to remember that. Put it that way. You know what? This is going back like 20 years now. Somebody told me what happened, and
Yeah.
there and then I thought I don't want to know that, and I'm glad I can't remember it. So I still am. Um, I suppose on one level it surprises me. I haven't got a clear memory of it because it's probably the sort of one of the biggest things that's ever happened to me in my life. And I mean,
Yeah.
if I think of some of the things I can remember, and they're just like nothingy,
Yeah.
But I've got no memory of that. It's almost as if I've lost my memory for that.
And do you think you'd be able to remember if you really tried?
Don't think so. I mean, but going back, 20 years ago when I did try, I couldn't remember anything. It was almost as if it had never been laid down in the first place. But
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't, I can't. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, somebody said something about recovered memories once, and I wondered about whether you could do that. But to be honest, like I said, I just find that avoiding everything is the best way
Mm.
to deal with it.
In the past month, have you had any strong negative beliefs about yourself, other people, or the world? So these could be things like believing that you can't trust anyone, the world is completely dangerous, those sorts of negative beliefs.
No, I mean, I don't really, I think you've got to be careful. I mean, there are bad people out there, but yeah, I mean, I think what happened to me was because I was, part of a war, on an island miles away. So
Mm.
I think and I just get on with life. I mean, when I'm wandering around Cardiff and that, it doesn't feel like a dangerous place to me if
Okay.
I'm honest. I mean, I suppose it depends who's around, but no, yeah, I don't really feel like that. I don't think.
Yeah, and so thinking back on the past month, can you think of any occasions where you've sort of had these strong negative beliefs?
About not trusting people and stuff like
Yeah, so any sort of negative belief about kind of the world sort of being kind of not perhaps how you thought it was before your time in the army, um anything like that, or has that not happened in the past month?
that. Not, I mean, there's a lot of bad stuff goes on, but I mean, I think that's what happens in the world, if I'm honest. So I don't think I don't think that's changed since. I think I'm more aware that, if if people, I don't follow it at all, but I know there's stuff going on in Ukraine now, and I just know what can happen in a war.
Yeah.
So it is a bad thing, and it is, that's really dangerous there. But I'm not, I mean, that's not in the UK.
Mm. Okay. And in the past month, have you blamed yourself or others for what happened?
Yeah, I mean, I've struggled a lot with over the years, and it is a bit better than it was, but I've struggled a lot with blaming myself for the deaths of a couple of people. I think I could have done more. I still think I could have done more. You know, other people have said that you couldn't, and as I say, I don't talk about it now. But yeah, I think I should have done more, and you know, I think there were times when I panicked, and I shouldn't have panicked. I should have been in control. So that really made me yeah, feel very weak, really, and you know, and I still do. I still think that I should have, you know, with the training that I had and everything, I should have done better than I did.
Mm.
If people were relying on me, and I let them down.
So, how strongly do you blame yourself? Can you think of any other way of thinking about it?
People have told me, you know, that you know, it's like when you're there, it's different situation. Everything's happening very quickly. You're under fire. How can you react? But so you know, I get it. There are other ways, and
Yeah,
you know, people have spoken about like challenging your thoughts and
yeah,
that. And I kind of a little bit. I mean, you know, when initially before I got any help, then you know, I was convinced, but I'm not convinced now. But still, you know, if I look at it absolutely, you know, as I think I should do, then I can't get away from the fact that I am to blame for, you know, ultimately I had a big hand in the deaths of a couple of my colleagues, which is difficult to live with.
yeah. And how much of the time over the past month have you felt this way? Have you blamed yourself?
But it's always there. It's inside me. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't dwell on it. I don't think about it. I push it. You know, I just don't. But you know, if you ask me at any time, I would say the same that I am. You know, I am to blame. There were other factors. Okay, there are other factors, but at the end, I played a big role in their deaths through. Yeah.
and I know this is quite difficult, but if you were to put a percentage on it, what percentage of the time over the past month do you think that you've blamed yourself?
Well, I blame myself all the time. I don't think about it all the time.
Yeah,
But you know, so I mean, if you're asking me how often is it in your consciousness, then not very much. You know, less than
yeah.
10% of the time. But if you're asking me how you know how consistently I feel to blame, then if I were asked, then it would be 100%. You know,
Okay. And in the past month, have you had any strong negative feelings such as fear, horror, anger, guilt, or shame?
yeah. Well, I think it ties in. You know, with what I just said to you. So I suppose I feel guilty and ashamed. You know,
Yeah.
over things I didn't do.
And how strong are those feelings?
Um, you, I think it's a bit like I said, you know, to your last question, that it's there. You know, it's not as bad as it was. I mean, I did, you know, I saw somebody, like I said, 20 years ago or something, and that, yeah, they did sort of challenge the way I was thinking. I could see it the other way, but I was never convinced I wasn't to blame, which was what they were trying to say. So I always felt, you know, guilty and bad, and you know, I've never been able to face like their families or anything like that. I've just, you know, totally blocked them out of my life. You know, that might even be a reason I don't do anything as well. You know, just the fear of seeing them again.
And how much of the time over the past month have you had these strong negative feelings, like the guilt and the shame that you mentioned?
It's always there. I mean, you know, I don't, as I say, I avoid thinking about it, but it's part of me. You know, I mean, and I can, you know, I've moved forward in other areas of my life, and I'm, you know, I gain a lot of pleasure from other areas of my life. But this is always there. This is sort of like a broken part of me that's in a. I guess I try and keep it in a box, really. But I'd always feel ashamed of it
Mm.
and guilty about it.
And did these sorts of feelings start or get worse after the event that you described earlier?
Well, they're only to do with that event.
Okay.
I don't think I'd have them otherwise.
Okay.
I've not got them about anything else. That, that, which is lucky, and touch wood that stays the same. But yeah, it's all around that. It's all around my friends dying, really, and feeling I could have done more.
Mhm.
That's I think I've suffered a lot over the years because of that.
And again, we've already touched on this, but in the past month, have you been less interested in activities that you used to enjoy?
Um, well, I can still enjoy doing some things as long as they're not connected with
Mm.
with the Falklands and that. So yeah, I keep quite fit. I run and I play sport and that, and I enjoy watching some things on the television and gardening and stuff like that, and my work I enjoy. So yeah, I'm interested in those things. I mean, I guess the one thing I've got no interest in anymore is anything to do with the military. And I
Yeah.
was obsessed about the military before I joined the army, but I've got no interest in that. So it's almost as if I've just sort of cut off that bit of my life, and
Mhm.
I've got on with life otherwise. In a way.
Yeah. So apart from your lack of interest in things to do with the military, have you lost interest in anything else?
So I mean, I mean, it's given me a different perspective on life. I think
Mm.
I'm sort of not. I've never been into like sort of not doing things that haven't got a purpose in a way. Not since all of this. So so like I don't know. I don't like it. Sort of sort of like going out and getting drunk and stuff like that. I've got no time for that or anything like that at all. It's just it's got to have a purpose and you've got to be in control, really.
Okay. So I know we're going round in circles a little bit here, but overall, in the past month, how many of your usual activities have you been less interested in?
I'd say virtually none, really. I mean,
Okay.
it's, I mean, obviously it happened a long time ago, but
Mm.
I don't think I'm doing much different than I would have predict. Well, perhaps my interests are a little bit different than they could have been, but I've got
Mhm.
interests I'm interested in. I mean, there's just certain no-go areas, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And in the past month, have you felt distant or cut off from other people?
Only anybody to do with the military.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, I feel for them. I just know that it's not going to be good for me to, discuss that sort of thing. I mean, I mean, to be honest, there's some people I know who were in the military. They know not to talk to me about it, who I work with and that. But I never knew them in the military, so I can get on fine, with
Mm.
them and just have a normal working life with them. But anybody that I associate at all with the Falklands, I can't. Or people in uniform, military uniform, then I
Yeah, yeah,
can't do that.
yeah. Um, so how many people would you feel comfortable talking with about personal things?
Well, probably just my wife, really. Yeah,
Mm.
just her. Yeah, yeah. I'm quite, quite private, I would say.
Okay.
But I think I've always been like that to a degree. I mean, in the past, sort of been able to talk about things with you my parents, maybe. Uh, yeah, yeah, but they're not around anymore. So with my children, I can to a degree, but I mean, I wouldn't. I never talk to them about it.
Mm.
They know not to talk to me about it. So I think it's my wife's the one that I would go to.
Mm. And do you feel close to your children and other family members?
Yeah, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I think we get on really well.
Okay. In the past month, have there been times where you've had difficulty experiencing positive feelings like love or happiness?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, yeah. I mean, well, going back to my children, then we had them over a couple of weekends ago, and we had some really good laughs, and
Mhm.
that was a really positive weekend, and so I felt both love and happiness then.
Mm.
And in my yeah, I mean, it's kind of a philosophical question, isn't it? What is
Mm.
happiness and that? But I think I'm content in my skin overall, although except for that went on in the past. But I think I've become more acceptant, and that's just part of me now.
Mm. And in the past month, have there been times where you've acted aggressively?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, this is a bit embarrassing actually because yeah. I mean, I like to think it's out of character anyway. But I had a real go at somebody in a supermarket who got my change wrong about 2 weeks ago. I was Yeah, I just really shouted at them, which
Mm.
is, you know, y yeah, that I wasn't thinking about anything at all, so I suppose I don't if people make mistakes, I don't like that, and it was
Mhm.
so obvious, but my wife had to, say, "Stop that," "Come away," and, yeah, so that happened. I mean, yeah, that I shouted at this, person, right? Yeah, I mean, I went I went back in the next day and apologised to them because I didn't think it was reasonable. They said, "Don't worry about it." But, yeah, so I did lose it like that.
Mm.
Um, I tend to be I don't tend to, lose it. It's only every so often, maybe 2 or 3 times a year, I sort of something just happens and I explode, but apart from that,
So in the past month, other than the what happened in the supermarket, have there been any other times that you've acted aggressively?
not aggressively, I wouldn't say. I mean, maybe, you know, well, snapped once or twice, but I wouldn't say more than other people
Mhm.
have. I
Yeah.
don't see
And
that. I see
in
that's going on.
in the situation at the supermarket, other than raising your voice, did you show your anger in any other way?
No, I just really shouted at the person. I swore, I think, as well.
Mm.
I didn't like touch them. I didn't like hit them or anything.
Mm. Okay.
I don't know. If my wife hadn't asked me to go away, I suppose it could have. That's a worrying thing for me that it could have built up further.
Mhm.
Uh, she knows, and
And did this aggressive behaviour start or get worse after the traumatic event that you've described earlier?
yeah, I'd say ever since ever since then, it's I've always liked things done properly, but yeah, ever since then, I mean, it used to happen much more regularly that I lost it, and that was something that the treatment helped quite a lot with. Actually, was losing control. But
Mhm.
yeah, uh, yeah. I mean, I was young when the Falklands War happened. I was very young, but yeah, I can't remember being like that, like as a child or whatever. But I was only like 18, 19 when
Mhm.
it happened. Yeah.
Mm. And in the past month, have there been times where you were taking more risks or doing things that might have caused you harm?
Um, I don't think much more than other people would do. I mean, I don't always stick to the speed limit, but apart from that, what sort of risks were you thinking of?
It could be things like drinking too much, or sort of doing anything that might cause yourself or other people harm. So things like spending too much money, gambling.
Yeah, and I stopped drinking years ago. That definitely didn't do me any good when I first came back from the Falklands. Gambling, I've never been into that. Um, as I say, I think I'm quite controlled, really. But if you say to me, "Do you always drive at 70 on a motorway?" Then I'd say no. But I must admit, I've read some stories about people getting prosecuted for going above 80. So I never drive above 80 on a motorway. I'd only go between 70. But yeah, probably my normal speed on the motorway would be 75, 77 rather than 70. But yeah, I mean, I used to drive fast track. I used to go over 80. But then when I started hearing these stories a few years ago about people being prosecuted, I think they got a bit tighter, the police, and that on what they expect for speeding there.
In the past month, have you been especially alert or watchful, even when there was no specific threat or danger?
Yeah, I'd say I definitely do that. Yeah, yeah. So I am aware, I am aware of things. So yeah, for example, I worry a lot about the about the health of my family, really. I mean, not like I said to you before, I don't really see I don't think there's danger out there at all. I just think that in a way, because of because I've had close people die, I've always been worried that other close people are going to die. So I thought, I guess when the children were younger, I was, I'd say I was overprotective of them. I didn't like them doing stuff or going away and things like that. Still, if they, one of my daughters went on holiday recently, and I just, I was just saying, make sure you text us when you're there, and when you get back and stuff like that. As I suppose I just worry a bit that an accident's going to happen.
So thinking back on the past month, would you say that the sort of worry for your family that you've been describing is the way that most people would feel in that situation?
Well, my wife says not, that she doesn't feel the same way as I do about it, and it's a bit of a standing joke in our family actually. With Dad's going to be. There's no need to check anything because Dad will check it, for us and that, and yeah. So certainly compared to the rest of my family, I don't suppose others do. I mean, I've always thought that's probably, well, when I did that treatment, they said it was a bit over the top, but it kind of reassures me just to to find out.
And how much of the time of the past month would you say that you felt that way? So being especially alert or watchful for danger or threat?
It's only really when I know people are doing something. So like definitely when people go flying. So I mean that happened twice because my daughter went there and back. Yeah, if people are traveling longer distances, I guess like when they all came down to visit us, then I was really worried actually that they hadn't got home properly. Because well, you just hear stories and that. They're all they're all really safe drivers, I think, so they always do get home. And my wife says don't keep on checking them, don't keep on texting them, they've not had time to get home yet, and that sort of thing. But yeah, so those are the only ones I can think of this month, actually.
Yeah. And if you were to estimate a sort of percentage of the time over the past month that you felt that way, I mean, what sort of percentage would you put on it?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because if there was something happening, it would definitely be there. But I'm not like on tenterhooks all the time, so it's probably percentage-wise, it's probably 10% or less if you add it all up. It's just that when it does happen, it really is there, if you know what I mean. I really am checking.
Mm. And in the past month, have you had any strong startle reactions?
Yeah, that's another
Mm.
standing joke in our family. Whenever there's a bang or a noise, that I jump. Yeah, I mean, I used to jump and sort of think a lot about the war, but I don't now. I just sort of jump and then I calm down. Yeah, but if there's ever like a sudden bang or a noise, and I've always thought that must be, because it's kind of reminiscent of like gunfire and bombs and stuff.
Mm.
Yeah, those are the only things that make me jump.
Mm. And how strong would you say these startle reactions are? Would other people notice?
Oh
Being
yeah,
startled?
yeah. I
Mm.
mean, I'd really jump. So you definitely, if well, I've shot people. If I jump, I shock people.
Mm.
I was sitting on a train once, and there was a massive bang, and I just jumped up, and the woman next to me, she just looked petrified, really. Yeah.
Mm.
But then I calmed down. Then I calm down. It's as soon as I know that there's no imminent danger, I suppose, then I'm fine.
Mm. And how long does it take for you to calm down?
Oh, really quickly.
Mm. And how many times has this happened over the past month that you've been startled by something?
I can think of two or three. I can think of three deaths in the last month. One of which was much worse than the others, which was a car backfiring. But then I reckon the sort of more minor ones, as well. I reckon most weeks there's at least something minor that makes me jump. But to be honest, you know, it's just become such a part of me that it's there. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, and you say it's a part of you, but did it start or get worse after the event?
Oh, yeah, no, I never did this before. No, no.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, before I went to the Falklands, you're doing lots of training with live ammunition, live fire, and that. And yeah, I was fine with that. I was, quite calm with all of that sort of thing.
Mm. Okay. And in the past month, have you had any problems with your concentration?
Um, not not massively so. I don't think. I mean, I get good reports at work and that, and I can, I'm always reading, so I can concentrate on that fine. I mean, when I'm, like when I am feeling, like when the children are traveling or something, then I don't suppose I concentrate as well then. Um, yeah, but apart from that, I'd say my concentration is quite good.
Okay. And so as a percentage of the month that you're unable to concentrate, then what sort of a percentage would you put on it?
I'd be really low. I mean so I suppose my example there would make it definitely, well, probably 5% or less. Yeah.
Okay, great. And in the past month, have you had any difficulties falling or staying asleep? So we have discussed this a bit earlier, but can you tell me a bit more about your sleep?
Yeah. So I mean, because I know I'm going to get these nightmares, then I definitely am a bit wary of that. So I've not been a great sleeper since the Falklands. Again, better than it was. So again, I've got a ritual. I, you know, go to bed. I know that I'm going to sort of just calm myself down. I read, and then when I'm feeling really tired, I turn the light out, and then yeah, you know, it often takes me then maybe half an hour to get to sleep, even though I wish I could just get sleep straight away. Then my wife can, and then I'd wake up to these nightmares when they happen, and then yeah, but then get back off to sleep again, and I wake up to my alarm to go to work. Yeah,
Okay. So how many hours of sleep do you think you're having in total on an average night?
maybe on an average. Well, if I have a nightmare, it's probably 5.5, 6, and if I don't have a nightmare, then I'd say it's 6.5, 7.
And how many hours of sleep would you like to be getting?
Well, yeah, if I don't get a nightmare, then the 7 hours feels okay to me. I'd probably rather have 7 than 6.5. Weekends I sometimes have like 8, but yeah.
And so how often in the past month would you say that you've slept less than you'd like to?
Um, with the nightmares and with not getting off to sleep some days, then probably half the time I'm not sleeping as well as I'd like to. But the really bad ones are when I get a nightmare.
And did these problems with sleep start or get worse after the event that we discussed earlier?
Yeah, I never had any slept like a log before. Even when we were in the field, I was renowned as being a good sleeper. When we were on exercises and that before this. But as I say, I was only, I think I was 19. So it was, yeah. I probably needed more sleep then than I do now.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So that was the last question for me. So thank you very much for your time. That was really helpful.
Pleasure.